everybody. Manchester Hooks at Auburn, and those of you on your computers, I hope there's a few of you there too. It is the 11th day of the 11th month, in which the 11th hour in 1918, the Great War ended. The war to end all wars. Oh man, if only that had been so, huh? The war to end all wars. We've been at war ever since.
A very optimistic name, if you can have one for a war, but and certainly a lot of people worked very hard, but it all collapsed within.
And of course, at that time, it was Armistice Day, and it was Armistice Day until 1954 when it became Veterans Day. And now we are here to celebrate Veterans Day in New Hampshire, and particularly in the great Queen City, with two outstanding guests representing the veterans organizations that were so effective and so important in our city and our state, Al Heidenreich and Bill Roy. And we couldn't be more pleased to have them here and to talk about the issues facing veterans and why this day is still so special in our city, and particularly in our state, and particularly in our city. So, Mike, I turn it over to you to introduce our guests.
Well, why don't we let our guests introduce themselves? Each one of them has a great story to tell. Bill, we'll start from the furthest away from me first. Bill, why don't you just tell folks a little bit about yourself, and maybe you want to include a little bit about what brought you to the military.
Well, it was during the Vietnam era. We graduated in '67, lifelong residents of Manchester, and so. Talking with my uncles, I always had an interest in the Navy, so I enlisted right after high school and served from 67 to 71. And to say the least, even though the Vietnam War was going on, I was always in the Pacific or in the Atlantic, never got to see any action, which I wasn't really too unhappy about. I've talked to a lot of my friends that had been there, and it was interesting to say the least. And to this day, one of the problems, and the Legion is really high on this, is PTSD. And we have about 20 veterans committing suicide every day. And it's a problem we've been trying to work on. We have service officers in different Legion posts, like at Sweeney Post, and they'll help any veteran get in their claims or any treatment that they need. And they're very knowledgeable. And I can't say enough to those people and how they handle it. And the VA hospital here in Manchester is, even with all the constrictions they had because of the COVID-19 protocols, they're still coming through in good stead. Compared to what happened several years ago, that was a travesty.
And you know what, we do want to talk about those things, and I realize it's difficult to give up the floor to Mr. Alan Heidenreich, but we do want to let Al introduce himself before we get into the big issues.
Sure.
Al, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, the problem of giving up a mic to me is that I don't give it back.
That's
and I figured
He
knows what he's
We'll try to police that for you, Al.
We'll try to maintain some
I
control.
want to thank you guys for coming, and I'll...
But Al, your story is a long one too.
Well, yeah, every veteran has a long story. My name is Al Heidenreich. I was born and raised in Manchester, and I served in the years from 1951 to 1954. We were talking about this before earlier, and those are considered the Korean War years or Korean conflict or whatever, which is, by the way, the longest war in history. It's still going on.
No peace treaty yet.
Yeah,
No
that's
peace
right.
treaty yet, that's right.
It's still an armistice, if you want to call it that, a ceasefire. But anyway, I enlisted in February of 1951, and did my basic down south, and I could tell you stories about the deep south in the 50s, but I won't. That's a whole nother program. I was sent overseas, and I ended up in Germany because somehow or other I think they thought that with my background, and I had a couple of years of high school German, that
the name Heidenreich, it's not necessarily Italian.
Exactly right. Well, no, but we were talking about before. It is strange because there's a section of between France and Germany called Alsace-Lorraine.
Yeah.
And when I first arrived there, I always remember the guy saying that you have to remember, you hand a German a gun and he heads for the French border. and they fought over Alsace-Lorraine every year. So
It was the first swing state, I think. It was,
exactly, yes. And as a matter of fact, I went to visit relatives over there, and I had all these addresses and everything, and it had gone back to France, and everything was changed. So all the addresses that I had in front of me were no good, but we survived. But anyhow, I ended up serving in the military police in the Army of Occupation, and I just want to tell you, it was really interesting turning that country back over to them, and basically that was my time in the service.
So I'd like you to both to tell us about what you've done to support veterans of the organizations you're involved with. Your American Legion, your VFW, is that right, Bill? Is that
No, American Legion. And
American Legion, just different caps, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you know you've both held distinguished positions in these national organizations. Tell us a little bit about that.
You go ahead.
I was state commander in 2009. I was a liaison to national in Indianapolis for 8 years. That's like a senator is representing the state of New Hampshire. I worked on national issues, got our message across and to national. And in national every year we have resolutions that we present before Congress, and also encourage the states to pass resolutions supporting veterans.
Yeah.
And to maintain a strong defense of many issues, many other issues.
Yeah. And how about you, Al? You had
Well,
many,
Bill
many
has held
positions of importance in the American Legion, too.
He has held every position you can imagine in the American Legion. I'm probably just the opposite, and I belong to several different organizations. Somehow or other, I got recruited into them, and my feeling was that if you can't donate money, you can donate time, and that's what I always did to participate with different organizations. I belong to the VFW also, beside the American Legion, the Catholic War Veterans, the Korean Veterans Association, New Hampshire Veterans Association, and that sort of thing. And I try and contribute my time and help out with issues. And
you're writing a regular column for the Union Leader
yes,
now on veterans issues.
a couple of years ago, Joe McQuaid and I were talking about a veterans issue or something, and he said, "Well, would you like to put that down in writing?" And he says, "I have some room on the veterans page if you would." So I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and
More than a couple, isn't it?
no, it's just maybe two and a half. Or
Okay.
and I enjoy doing it, and I get a good response from veterans, and they send me a lot of stuff. And I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity to say that I am a volunteer. And a lot of people think I'm maybe an editor or part of the Union Leader, and technically I'm not. So they send me a lot of things that they want to get put in to the veterans page, and I have no say whatsoever. There's editors that handle that. So if you have sent me something in the past and I haven't acknowledged it, I have passed it on to the powers that be. But again, I enjoy doing it, and it's very rewarding to have people, thank you for bringing their issues out. And
And I think a
that's
lot of people look forward to seeing your contributions.
Well, yeah, and we pushed to join the organizations. Obviously, the American Legion is the largest veterans organization, I think, in the world. And so it's big and it carries a lot of clout, but the numbers are way down from previous years. I think our post at one time, which is now the largest in the state at about 1,200, close to that, at one time was 1,500 or more. And the numbers are down. The younger people are joining other different things, whatever they're doing. And but I like to stress, join a veterans organization because every voice counts. It's like voting. Every vote counts. And joining a veterans organization, we hope it's the American Legion or the VFW or whatever, pick a local organization, join it. Doesn't have to be active, but your numbers count. If you want to be active, I'm sure you'll be more than welcome.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Manchester has a kind of a great history with the American Legion, and in particular Sweeney Post. And I love the story how it's post number 2. Bill, could you smile? I assume you have the history. Tell us a little bit about the history of Sweeney Post and how it ended up the second post in the state.
Well, there's a couple of different stories. Between Laconia and Manchester, we put in our charter at the same time. Now, who was going to get number 1? Who was going to get number 2? So there's some story that they flipped a coin, but the other story that's probably more is true is they said, well, we're going to need a state commander. Which post wants to have the state commander, and which post wants to be number one? Well, we said, well, we'll have our first state commander, who happened to be Frank Knox. And Frank Knox was the publisher of the Union Leader for many years, and he became my first state commander. And Frank Knox was also Secretary of the Navy during World War II, and he was also from Sweeney Post. And that's basically how it started. And we've been doing quite well over the years. We have a good cadre of people over here, and our job is to really assist and help with the veterans, and do a pretty good job with the community, supporting local sports and scholarships and other endeavors, which we'll discuss a little later.
Yeah, that's great.
See, I've been a member of the American Legion for 38 years, and I always thought it was the coin flip. So it shows you.
It's two
Well,
stories
you
there.
always learn something on the
Every
progress
day,
report. I got to
every-
tell you that.
absolutely.
Breaking news: Sweeney Post. It was not the coin flip.
Yeah, we still don't know, really.
Well, they're both prosaic and
Neither one of
very
us
fun.
was there at the time.
Wait a minute, weren't you?
I was waiting for that.
So listen, Al, you stressed the importance of joining an organization. Just that idea of joining an organization somehow in today's modern world seems a bit old-fashioned.
Well, okay,
And I'm not trying to put it down. I'm a member
No,
of
no,
organizations
no.
myself. It does work in the modern world, but it's hard to convey that until someone has already joined. Then they realize, hey, this is a good thing.
well, you got to put it in perspective too. Many years ago, travel was limited, transportation was limited. Private clubs in Manchester, when I was growing up, there were 77 private clubs in Manchester. I think there are something like 12 now.
Really?
People are mobile, and so they don't join organizations, and they feel like that they're going to be pinned down and have to go to a meeting and have to do this. And it's just the opposite. If you join the American Legion or you join the VFW or whatever, the Ancient Order of Hibernians, you add a voice. You add a number to that organization. And again, the American Legion is several million people, and Congress is going to listen. And the same thing with the other organizations. So if you join, you lend your number to that organization. If you want to participate, any organization is going to be more than welcome to have you participate. There are so many positions and things that can be done, fundraisers, whatever. They'd love to have you. And I would like to mention this one thing. When I first started working and became on the membership committee, and Bill was running it at the time, I believe, at the Post, and I would be recruiting something, I would speak to the female members. And I would say, you should join and come and be part of it. We'd love to have the female members and get their output. And the majority would say, well, we're not really interested in a bunch of cigar smoking, beer swilling, swearing, that woo. And that was what everybody thought it was. And actually, it was just the opposite. Most of your organizations now are smoke-free. Language I can't control, but it's not the same.
But they provide opportunities to get together with people of like purpose and like mind. They provide opportunities to combine efforts to do good things in the community. You can, by offering a little, you can create a lot of benefit
Absolutely.
for the community.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. Bill could tell you a lot more about that. He's been involved. There's nothing that he has not been involved with as far as the American Legion and on the state and national level. He has to introduce himself to his wife every few months or so because he's on the road all the time.
Wow.
And he's very active, and he deserves everything that he gets.
Well, before we go any further, this guy, he's been a valuable asset to the veterans and Sweeney Post and Manchester as a whole. Just a few years ago, Al won the Morris McQuillan Award. And that is the most prestigious award for veterans in New Hampshire. And then most of you know, maybe the viewers will know, Morris McQuillan was the longtime employee of the union leader, and he established a veterans page. And to this day, it is still in existence, and we have the longest existent veterans page in the country. By far, it's not even close.
Is that so? I didn't know that.
Not even close.
Another
That's
thing for
very,
Manchester
that's very
to be
good to
proud
know.
of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they're
really
pretty good.
good.
Morris McQuillan was a legend in his own time. For Al to own that award, to get that award, along with him and Mike Lopez, you know what they've all done in this place.
Yes, we certainly do.
Well, what they do is they make a list when they want to present that award, and then they get down to the end of the list and turn it upside down, and my name came up, so you can't refuse it.
I thought it was the toss of the dice.
But it's an honor. I'm not trying to belittle it. Believe me, I was
You
stunned.
should not.
And I appreciate all those involved in it. I still don't know how it happened.
I
but,
was present when the award was announced, and it was the only time in my life that I've ever seen Al Heidenreich speechless. He was completely speechless.
second time, AOH meeting.
Oh, is that? Yeah, that was the second announcement. Yeah.
The second time that I was speechless because I had no idea on the parade.
Oh yes.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
you're right. Yeah, when you
When
were
you were
named
Grand
the Grand
Marshal.
Marshal.
Yeah.
Well, you know, a lifetime of service, and you end up getting those surprises, I guess, once in a while. But let's turn to some current issues regarding veterans. You know, we lip service isn't the right term, but I can't think of there's a better one. But you know, we honor our veterans with our words. We have this holiday set aside, but then we have homeless veterans, and as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, you know, a lot of veterans suffering from PTSD, a lot of undiagnosed PTSD or late diagnosed PTSD, and that can wreak havoc on your life, your relationships, and it can make things very, very difficult. Obviously, as a country, as a community, we're not doing enough because the problems persist. But can you talk a little bit about what is being done and what still needs to be done on any one of those issues? Pick one, and then we can move on to the next ones.
Okay, PTSD, like we said, 30% of the veterans, homeless veterans are, the homeless people are veterans. And PTSD, as we know, 20 veterans are committing suicide a day, and that is a problem. And I can tell you the VA hospital is working hard. It is to get the people to admit it and to come to treatment. Once they get in the system, you have an 85% success rate. But to get them to admit it and to come into the system, that's hard. The VA has a lot of community-based outreach clinics. Now they send people to the outside for different procedures because it just doesn't justify it to do it at this hospital here in Manchester. The system is working well, but we still need the VA hospital. The VA hospital system still has the skills set to handle these veterans and speak to them better than a local medical professionals. One thing we try to do in conjunction with the National Guard, I'm on the State Veterans Advisory Committee. Mike Lopez is the representative for the American Legion, and we go to meetings once a month and we talk about the issues. And New Hampshire is, again, very in the forefront in helping their veterans. And one of the things Colonel Michaelitis and all his successors before that, his predecessors rather, said they want the medical community to ask the question. Ask the question is, when they come into their office, are you a veteran? Now they can work towards the veterans. We're trying to make medical professionals aware of this so they can actually send the veterans to the right place, mainly of the veterans medical system here in our country and start
You make an interesting point that I had not observed and hadn't been pointed out to me, and I really like when that happens on this show when guests do that. So I'd like to explore it a little bit more. You said that the VA system can treat veteran. I'm paraphrasing it, but I think what you were trying to say was that, or what I understood was the VA system understands the veteran's perspective better than the public health system outside of the VA. Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me because they're specialists. They're specializing in the types of things that a veteran would encounter. That makes sense to me. So what you're suggesting is that veterans who seek treatment outside the VA should be steered in toward it. They can actually get better treatment. And how does that square with, New Hampshire not even having a full service VA hospital for the longest time? You know what I mean? Does the system in New Hampshire meet the level of care that it seems to have in other areas? My impression was that we were lacking here.
Well, we did have some bad management in the years, but since then, when Al Montoya took over and just turned that place around, now we have Kevin Forrest, and we do have the ability to treat people with PTSD. We do have the professionals. If we have to, we'll send them sometimes down to Bedford, Mass. It's not too far away, and we'll take them down there and have them treat some of their issues. But in most cases, we can do it around here, and we're working with the mental health professionals in the area and helping them understand. So this community-based outreach that we're having, and also with the VA, is working well now. Those days are gone, which we saw in the Union Leader. I still can remember that Sunday news article from the Boston Globe. My jaw dropped. I told my wife, who was
We had that doctor on the show.
Dr. Goldner, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Was it?
Levinson? There was a couple of them.
No, he's actually since passed. I forget the doctor's name, but we had him on the show several years ago.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. He was my son's doctor, yes.
Yeah.
Boy. Call in. My son's watching. Call in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll come to me
But I
later.
He was
I
killed in an automobile
Yes,
accident.
but I remember, when he kind of brought the crisis to the public eye, and it sounds like action has taken place, and we've got some improvements.
I can't
which-
believe I forgot his name.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I know it as well as
Look,
I know.
this isn't a quiz show. I didn't
It
mean to
isn't.
put you
No,
guys
we
on
don't
the
lose
spot.
any points.
It's okay. We
Once he
honor
began
him
with an
when we
O
know
or
his name
something,
or not.
he was a hero in my eyes. When
Yeah,
he
he
did all
was.
that.
He was. Here's a thing that, again, going back, how times change, all right? And the older I get, the more I think back and say, oh, my God, the World War I veterans were, they were shell-shocked. They called it shell-shock.
Shell shock, yeah.
Or a lot of them got gassed because the gas was used in the
Yeah, the
wars then.
mustard
And then
gas
in
on
World
that.
War II was battle fatigue.
Right up, yes, up there. So, and they were ashamed of it. If a person, the General Patton incident,
Yeah.
in which the general slapped the guy, and I won't go into that, but so it was not, you were running from it, if you and you didn't want to admit it. Now we have proven that you're accepted. It's acceptable. It's okay to have a mental
Certainly
problem.
understandable, having gone through
Exactly.
some of the horrors that you guys had to go through.
It's not being a sissy or a coward to admit that you have a problem. And it doesn't necessarily have to be connected with the military even, but I'm just bringing that out. That if it is connected with the military, they will listen. Now, if we can't, you mentioned we're not a 100% full-time VA hospital here, but I'll tell you right now, the community care program will get you the private service that you need. And they don't say, well, we can't do that, so you'll have to, good luck. No. Once you're in a system, they will find a way to route you somewhere on your way to the care, and help you with your mental illness, your problem. And many times it's knowing that the help is there that is so beneficial to the individual. I mean, he doesn't have to hide. How many guys do you know? Every time I read in the paper, and I get all excited about this because I really get. You read in the paper, so-and-so passed away, 94 years old. He was in Iwo Jima, blah, blah, blah. He was in, he was... And you say, I never knew. I knew the guy for years and never knew it. They never talked about it. Right? They didn't want to. Now we're getting them to come out and tell their stories. And they should share those stories. And it's a relief to unload for them, and because they're holding all that stuff inside. So it's not shameful to admit you have a problem. And I hope every veteran understands that. And there is no qualifications to joining the VA. If you're a veteran, you can join the VA. What level you end up on, that's a whole different story as they analyze it and so on. But you are welcome there. And in my experience is they bend over backwards. I mean, they can't do enough for you.
Yeah, yeah. And yet we still have this incredible suicide rate that you mentioned, Bill. And you said the major problem with that is just getting people to admit that they are in a crisis and they need help, right? So what does the American Legion do to help these veterans? What's their programs?
Well, was number one, what our local services on the local level, service officers on the local and state level, these people have the expertise to get them through the system. Bob, you being a lawyer, it's like going through the court system without having a lawyer. It just doesn't work to do it by yourself. And we offer these services for free. And we can guide you through that, guide you through the
How do you get
matching.
people to come to you, though, and speak out to you? I can see where they might rather speak to you, fellow veterans, than, some psychiatrist somewhere in a VA, medical unit. But how do you get them to, how do you encourage them to come out?
The number one is we try to encourage them to enroll in the VA system, and once they go through their first comp and pen exam, and they start talking with the medical professionals over there, they're usually pretty quick, and they can pick on it real well and send
And
them
that's
to
part
the,
of that expertise you
exactly,
were talking about
which
earlier.
is the local mental health authorities. But they're getting better. They are really getting better locally.
Every post, American Legion, VFW, go along, Catholic War Veterans, you go on and on. Every post, to the best of my knowledge, has what's called a service officer. And if you, usually he's a friend of yours. You belong to the post, you know the guy. He's on this board and so on. If you have a problem, he's your liaison. And you can go say to him, say, geez, Bill, I got this, I don't know what to do and something. He should know or be able to point you in the right direction. So you don't have to start, from going up, banging on the doors and screaming, take me in. If you
He's
think
a
you have
pathfinder.
a problem,
You got someone to bring you along. Look,
That's
we got
right.
a call. Our conversation has generated some interest from our viewers. We got Evan. Oh, we lost Evan.
Who'd you lose?
We had Evan on the line. Evan, if you'd like to call back, we'd love to hear from you.
We'll take your call, Evan. If you want to call us back, we'd love to have our viewers call in and ask us or comment on what we're saying.
Well, just to go back, one thing that bothers me over the years, I was at a party and I met this couple and their son had just came back from Desert Storm. I says, how's he doing? He says he doesn't want to talk about it. I said, listen, I want to talk with him, all right? And I never got back to him. It's one of the few times I never let that happen again. And I saw the couple 3 years. Hey, how's your son doing? Committed suicide.
Oh, geez.
And I dropped the ball on that one. Not saying it wouldn't work, but
That must really haunt
yeah,
you.
and it haunts you. And a friend of mine, he was in Vietnam. He saw a lot of action, and a lot of us people know him here in the city.
Yeah.
Angie Manny, all right. And he says one thing about this war: you were in the jungles fighting it. 3 days later, you're back in the home in your neighborhood. After World War II, after World War I, they had to go in these transient camps. They got to decompress and talk with their people.
Oh, that's interesting.
You think about
I never heard about
yes, you think about this. They all had to come back by ship,
that. Yeah.
and they had to wait in those camps. Now, 24 hours, you're back in the States. There's no decompression, no transition
Yeah,
in talking with
yeah.
people.
Pretty tough.
So that's probably it has a big effect on
I
this.
think we may have our caller back.
It's Evan.
Evan, we have you on the line. Thanks for getting back to us. What's your question or comment?
Oh, I just wanted to thank about. Oh, hello.
Oh, you know what? You're probably hearing kind of an echo from your TV. If you turn your TV down, it'll be a lot easier.
I just wanted to tell you all thank you for serving. I am Bill Roy's grandson.
All right, Evan.
He's smiling broadly.
You got a double whammy there.
You made his day, Evan. Thanks very much for calling in.
Thank you, Evan.
How much that
Thank
cost?
you. Bye.
Okay, bye, Evan. Well, that's great. That's
Well, he's the oldest one in the family. He just turned 13, and my middle grandson, which is his brother, got his first deer today at 11 years old. So he's pretty proud of that.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Food in
It
the
took me
fridge.
years to get it in my first year.
You know,
Do you want to take a break at this point, or you want to go straight on?
Now, why don't we take a break? We can take a break, regroup,
Okay.
and set our agenda for the next one. Folks, don't forget to call in,
Yeah.
640-3091. Follow Evan's example, and you can thank a veteran right here. on
I
the
don't think
Progress
I
Report.
told Bill and Alan this, but we usually do take a break here just to kind of make sure we're getting to the things you want to talk about.
No, we'll take a quick break. So, Brendan, if you'll sing us out.
Hey, we're back celebrating this Veterans Day, the 11th day of the 11th month, and the World War I ended, as we all know, in the 11th hour of this very day in 1918. And we couldn't be more pleased than have two outstanding veterans of our military service in this country, Bill and Al Heidenreich. Bill Roy and Al Heidenreich, very active with the American Legion, doing a lot of good for a lot of people, particularly our veterans in this country. And we're very much enjoying our opportunity to talk with them, and we apparently have a caller.
No, Phil, we lost Phil. Sorry, Phil, we went to break right as you called in.
Call back, Phil, we'll put you on.
But during the break, we were kind of steering where we were going to go with this, and Al, you brought up, or someone brought up the topic of how veterans are treated by the public, and that kind of has fluctuated over the course of this country's history. We know that it was a kind of a negative experience for veterans after the Vietnam War, but perhaps things have gotten better. Al, you were making some comments about that. Would you care to kind of repeat those? What was your observation?
Obviously, I lived through it, and I remember seeing all these things on television, and I just couldn't believe that it was happening. I don't remember an issue of that sort happening in New Hampshire. And I was, part of veterans organizations back then, and it just blew my mind that people were even doing this. I said, "This can't be America," and but it was happening, and so the Vietnam veterans kind of isolated themselves off and got together themselves. The veterans, they got the bikers. They formed their biker groups, and the Patriot Guards and things like that. And let me preface that by saying that I have a bike myself and rode in a lot of these things, so I'm not knocking them, except the ones with the real loud pipes. But anyway, they went off on their own. And when we used to have parades, and Bill knows this is better than I do, they marched together. All the other veterans groups, for the most part, Korea, World War II, marched in a group, if they belonged to a post, they belonged in that group. But the Vietnam veterans seems to, and I understand it. They were very defensive and went on their own. And I can remember talking to guys, trying to recruit them to join. And it was, no, we're fine, And they called themselves the Vietnam Veterans of America, and that's fine, and it's worked out well, and no problems. But it was a tough time for America, and now people have realized what every veteran more or less has gone through, and they understand it more, and there's more communication now, more information available. So and there's nothing like information to get things going, and so I feel that has leveled itself off, and veterans are more appreciated now. And I have a pin that I wear, or different build might have them. I go into Market Basket, I go into something, and somebody will walk by and say, "Thank you for your service." I mean, that's a boot. I just get the biggest kick out of that,
So you do appreciate that when people come up to you and say that.
People are doing that.
We should note that.
Yeah. They understand that now, that what most veterans have gone through. And not just the ones that were on the front line. In World War II, there were 3 million guys in uniform, and only like 250,000 actually on the front lines. The
Well,
rest were
it
support
takes
groups.
a lot of backup to put that kind of power out.
I have a
out at
quick
the front.
favorite story. My stepfather-in-law, was drafted, and his eyesight was not the greatest, and so on. And so they sent him to Cape Cod, and he worked in quartermaster for World War II. And so, I mean, that was an important job, supplying the troops and everything else. So when he was discharged, the World War II guys all got the eagle, we call them the ruptured duck that they wore, and show they were a veteran. And people would ask him, "Oh, you're a World War II veteran." "Yeah, but what action did you see?" And he used to say, "Well, I don't like to talk about it, but I fought the Battle of Buzzards Bay." And they go, "Oh my God, you poor man."
Sounds awful.
That must have been dreadful.
Oh yeah.
That amphibious landing must
But
have been
anyway,
brutal.
it was. Believe me, there was 6 or 7 people backing up every one that was on the front line.
Yeah.
Bill, you served during the Vietnam era. You mentioned that you were further out at sea and probably not so much in country, but nevertheless you were a veteran at that time.
Mm-hmm.
What did you add anything to Al's comments? What's your experience, and are things getting better, as he says?
Okay, just let me tell you something about at the time of '67, the Tet Offensive started in '68. That was the heyday of the Vietnam War. That's when the action was all happening.
Yeah.
And many of my fellow classmates went, and they all served with honor, every one of them. In fact, they were the most educated military force we ever had at that time. They were average 19 years of age and were very smart. Of course, they didn't really get support. They didn't go out to win the war like we did in World War II and World War I. They would have these breaks where everything was settled down and the enemy would rebuild and everything. That didn't work. It was fiat by from Washington, D.C. and not letting the field commanders take their thing.
Yeah.
So that, right now, when I joined the Legion in 1985, about 15 years after I got out, I wish I would have joined right away. Sweeney Poles had probably 800 World War II veterans. Now it's 800 Vietnam War veterans.
Mm-hmm.
We only have 46 World War II veterans now.
Boy, they're disappearing fast, aren't they
Sure.
now? Yeah.
And we just
All honor to them.
had a little dinner for them recently, a couple Sundays ago, honoring them. And anybody who had 50 years of service, and anybody 85 or older and 50 years of service. And unfortunately, not all of them could come because of this COVID-19 and their health. Otherwise, it would have been a real blast. But the people we had, it was quality, and we do think about our older veterans as well. We do as help our younger veterans.
Yeah. You know, we've had a major change in our military.
Oh, I know where you're going, and I was going to ask that question.
I mean, we were a nation in arms in World War II. We had a citizen army. We had a citizen army in Korea. And then lastly, we had a citizen army in Vietnam. We no longer have a citizen army. We have a professional army. We're representing a very tiny fraction of the population compared to what we used to have. How has that affected the American Legion and what you do for veterans? Has that had an effect? I mean, it must be, you know, I mean, at one time you probably would have had huge numbers at the American Legion post because everybody served in World War II in Korea and
And we had the
to a
draft.
large extent in Vietnam. And when we went from the, you know, the draft military to the all professional volunteer military, it was a different world. Just maybe you can comment how that's dealt with veterans issues and our attitude toward veterans.
You know, he's as far as membership, he's Mr. Membership. That's all he eats, sleeps, and drinks membership because that's his.
Should talk.
That's his thing, and I mean he just goes on to it. When I went in, I enlisted because I didn't want to wait to get drafted. I wanted to go. I was not going to college. That's a long story short. So my serial number said RA and then the number. If you were drafted, it said US in the number. I don't know why they did that. I still to this day don't know why they did it. But they used to differentiate. Oh, you're a freaking RA. You joined up. You can't complain. The draftees could complain because they were drafted.
I never thought of that, but it kind of makes
you
sense.
know? And so you wanted to hide the numbers, the letters in front of your name, and so they would say something, and I can remember in my outfit every once in a while somebody would say, What do you think about? They'd be complaining about something, and I'd say, well, you know, that's the way it happens. And they'd say, don't expect him to answer. He's an RA.
Well,
Meaning that I joined, so I can't complain. And it's funny, but that was a differentiate. And but anyway, but now everybody's, you know, I'll give you what I feel. I feel that they never should have got rid of the draft. I think every eligible person should serve a couple of years and learn what
And
what
maybe
life
if
is
not
all
in the
about.
military, serve the country in some other way.
Well, if you can't, exactly. Yeah, in other
And
words,
I think that's a really fine idea. I don't understand why we haven't pursued that.
and you know, it takes you out of your adolescence and you become a man, believe it, and you don't know it.
Yeah.
But when you have to get down on your hands and knees and clean a drain, a grease pit, or whatever that you know that mommy did it for you when you were home, you find out it's a different
And
world
probably
out
next
there.
to somebody you would have never been next to in your life otherwise, right?
Exactly. It's
They
the
might be
melting pot.
a black guy from Alabama or something like that.
Oh, don't get me going on that. I can give you a whole program on that. I was in the last outfit that was integrated to Truman did that. And don't get me. I don't even want to go into it. It's a long
We'll call
story.
him back, Bob.
We'll
him
call
for
you
another
back,
show.
Al. We'll have you back if you're willing. For
Please
sure.
do.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
anyway, it's a big equalizer, you know. And the guys next to you, you know, his family owned a business or whatever, but he got drafted, and unless you had hardship, you know, you went.
Yeah.
One of the guys in my outfit, he was the next in line in the business. He's from New York, and his father died while he was in the service, and he was the surviving oldest son.
Yeah.
So he was got a hardship discharge to go back and take over the family business.
Yeah.
I mean, the government had a heart, and in that sense, you know. And but there's a million stories, but. Anyway,
You have any comments on that, Bill? You know,
actually, I used to think like Al about the draft. I don't anymore. I see. I know people who were career people in 1975 when they got rid of the draft. There were a lot of people that didn't want to be there, and have friends of mine that made careers, and Mike Lopez and some other people, and they said you could notice the change in the tenor of the military because the people that signed up really wanted to be there. Actually, we have the best soldier ever in the history of this world. They are more efficient. They are better. They are better trained. I can't say enough about what we're doing with this small amount of military. I think we have less than 3 million in all the services. They're everywhere, and they're fighting potential expertise is nothing. In comparison, nothing. And that's the great equalizer. That's
Well, the technology is now so demanding.
Exactly.
I'm sure you need
Exactly.
very highly trained, very well qualified, as I say, extremely well educated,
Extremely.
competent people to manage this technology that we display now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and also that when they have the mixture, I mean, the ones that joined are the ones that wanted to be there. The ones that were drafted, not necessarily wanting to be there, but that doesn't mean they were going to give them a rifle and send them up on the front lines. All, like I said before, there were just so many behind-the-scenes jobs that have to be done.
Yeah.
They have to be done, and so they
yeah,
do it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, you'll never, it'll never come back again. Conscription, I don't think will ever come back again
Right.
because they just don't feel it works. But I can give you incidents and where it worked and where it didn't. So,
Yeah.
and so can everybody else.
But we're able to field the military that we need without it. Obviously, the military's doing something right to be able to attract talent. They're without force. It's so they're offering a career path to young men and women.
Well, yes and no. Some these guys that are in now are doing their third and fourth and fifth trip to Afghanistan or whatever, and that is, I'm sure, contributing as much as anything to PTSD. I mean, when you've done two, and then two through and 3 trips and 4 trips, whereas if you have the manpower, you replace them. And they can come back and do the quartermaster jobs or whatever back in the, cooks and that sort of thing. But
So we're
I
overtaxing.
sound like I got the answers. I don't, but I have an opinion. And then when I'm not at home, I can say whatever I want.
Well,
That's why we had you here.
I don't think you're holding back too much tonight either. How has the American Legion changed with the change in our military from a mass draftee to a all volunteer, highly professional force? Has that changed the mission of the American Legion anyway? And what is the American Legion mission now, would you say?
A veterans community, country.
Yeah.
Exactly. We started off supporting the veterans. That's where we still do to this day.
Yeah.
We met in March 14, 15, 16, and 1919 and started forming the organization. By September 16th of 1919, we had our national charter. From there, we've been running with it ever since.
So it goes back to the immediate aftermath of World War
Right.
One. Really.
Again, people were sitting around since November 11th, waiting to go back. They were in those transition camps. Hey, when we get back home, we need an organization to support us. We actually replaced the Grand Old Army of the Republic, which is mainly officers. But they emphasized it was Theodore Roosevelt Jr. is actually considered the father of the American Legion, that this is going to be open to everybody, from the lowest enlisted to the general, male, female, didn't matter.
And there's no rank.
Yeah.
There's no rank in the Legion. And
I
the
was going
American
to
Legion-
ask about officers, enlisted men, no difference in the
Exactly.
Legion.
And
I wasn't aware of that, but that's important to know, I think.
yeah, and the American Legion started in France.
Really?
It started in Paris.
Yeah.
That's where they originally guys got together, and like he said, when we get home, we want to do this or do that. But it started in Paris.
Do you
I
maintain?
visited it when I was there.
Do you maintain a relationship with other similar veterans organizations in our allies in these wars? In France and Germany, not Germany, I guess, but maybe Germany now, Great Britain. Is there similar organizations, and do you have links with them?
Yes, we do. In fact, we work very closely with them. If we go to, say, the Canadian American Legion, they invite us. We go into their posts. We're welcome, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Veterans of Britain, we're a brotherhood and a sisterhood now. In fact, about 25% of our military is now female.
Really?
Yeah. One thing I want to emphasize is
Yes.
I have to get this before. You've all heard of the GI Bill.
Yes, we have.
All right. We've had stimulus programs under Bush and under Obama and everything. This is the only stimulus bill that ever worked. All right.
The GI Bill?
Yep.
Well, I might argue that some of the other ones it works at least to some extent, but
no.
the GI Bill was an enormous success.
By
No
far,
doubt
it
about
was
it.
it was the first stimulus bill, and it still was the best. More people got education, and it just helped them a lot. And guess who really formed that? behind the scenes was Frank Knox.
Really, our old Manchester
Morris
guy.
K. Devine is one of the writers of the GI Bill.
I remember Morris Devine. I used to work at Devine
I
Millamette.
knew you would. And
I remember him. He was a very great vet.
oh yeah, sure.
Great
and
guy.
of course, Frank Knox, Morris K. Devine, and then Jim O'Neill, who was
Yeah.
chief for a long time in Manchester. In fact, Manchester was the only city of his size not to require a armed forces presence. His police department was so good that he had everything under control.
Wasn't he first national commander?
He was, 1947 he became national commander. He was from Sweeney Post also. Quite a man. He actually got the airport going in the late 30s. In fact, he had a pilot's license before he had a driver's license. People, they used to drive him around. And he was also editor for the Union Leader. And after he was national commander for 24 years, he was the editor for the American Legion magazine.
My goodness.
So we have a lot of,
fascinating stuff.
the GI Bill was actually a lot of New Hampshire people.
You know, I went to college in the early 60s, and I remember asking one of my professors, what was the best time you had here? He said it was the GIs. The GIs that came into the school on their scholarships. They were so anxious to learn. They were so interested. They wanted to participate in everything. It was the best time.
I heard that they were more mature than.
They were more
than-
mature.
so,
They,
yeah.
you know,
I
that-
put-
at that time we had a pretty good football team, which we didn't have when I was there.
Our good friend Dave Nixon, GI Bill.
GI Bill.
Dave Nixon
Dave Nixon, yeah.
was a post commander. He was a
We
mentor.
went to
He
the
was a
same school, by the way. So
yeah,
you
he
know.
was a mentor to me.
Yeah.
Okay? He was, in fact, I was his assistant commander when he.
When they dedicated the senior center to Dave Nixon,
Yeah.
the senior center on the west side,
Yep.
and we found an honor guard when they were honoring him for the dedication, and I happened to be standing on the end of the line as he passed through the honor guard, and he saw me like that, and he went, "PFC Nixon reporting for duty, sir." And he made it clear that PFC, he no officer or any of that jazz. I'm one of the boys, and he was.
Yeah.
He was, and he supported
He
us
lost
a
an eye
lot.
in Korea.
Pardon me?
Dave Nixon lost an eye in Korea.
Yes.
he did.
Yes. I knew he lost an eye. I wasn't sure I knew it was in Korea, but
Korea.
that's where it happened, huh? Yeah. Well.
Yeah,
Marty Laughlin too. When
Right.
he went on the
Another
GI Bill.
another great World War II vet.
He was a longtime judge advocate for Sweeney Post.
Yeah. Really.
So was
Swe-
Dave.
Swe-
He wrote
Sweeney
a
is
very
great-
telling memoir of his part in the
Bulge.
liberation of Europe.
Oh, the ball. He was in the Bulge.
He was in the Bulge. That's right.
In
yeah.
fact, he spoke.
I
to
think
us-
he was part of the liberation of one of the camps.
2000, you're right. In 2005, he spoke to us. We had a recognition for the World War II veterans at our post. And when somebody asked him, "You were in the Bulge?" and he says, "Yes." And I'm still in the Bulge every day. No, it stuck with him to all.
Oh, really? He wasn't just talking about his waistline. He was talking about something more.
Yeah,
than that. Okay.
I understand that. I think Al, you may correct me on this, but more people were lost in the Battle of Bulge than the whole Pacific Theater.
Right.
That's how bad that battle was.
Yeah, it really
I'm not
was.
sure of the numbers, but it was.
Bill Beiser was telling me that just
Yeah,
recently.
it was.
Yeah.
It was horrendous. You know, we can refight a lot of the battles that never should have happened, but
Right.
That's politics. That's when politics get involved in the war. But anyway,
Does it concern you, gentlemen, that we've had no commander in chief that's had military experience, never mind combat experience, I think, since George H.W. Bush,
Yep.
who fought, valiantly, and
George W. had the
Well,
reserve.
but he was strictly stateside.
Yes.
I mean, it was,
Oh, yes, I know what you're talking
it was Air National Guard, I believe. And we've had numerous presidents of both parties that got out of military service with various deferments,
the first George
whatever
Bush,
merit.
The first George Bush was World War II.
He was.
Yeah,
And shot down and rescued by
he
rescued.
bailed out.
Yeah,
Right,
bailed
yeah.
out. Yeah.
yeah.
And
Well, it was it was the times. That's the way it was.
Yeah.
But, what are you gonna do?
It actually doesn't bother me too much. You have a president listens to his advisors and his generals and everything, does the right thing. I don't think you really need that experience. It doesn't hurt though.
it doesn't hurt.
No, it
Right.
doesn't.
You're right. We can't require it because now such a tiny fraction
It's,
of our
it's one thing
population
to imagine
is serving in
combat
an active
and another,
way.
and another to serve in combat.
Yeah,
I you can do your best to try to understand, but I don't think you can truly understand unless you've lived it. I think that life is like that for a lot of things.
Well,
There's no substitute for experience.
If people watching us want to not have their part in helping veterans end with this 11th day of the 11th month, and want to support veterans, what do you think is the most important thing to do? Or support the American Legion?
Oh, absolutely. The American Legion is veterans. I mean, you have to be a veteran to join the American Legion. Male or female, doesn't matter. If you're served, fine. And then there's the auxiliaries and the Sons of the Legion and different arms of it, so on. But everything, there's a phrase, and I don't want anybody to think that I coined it, it didn't, but veterans continue to serve. And this is what
good
most
phrase.
of veterans organizations are, veterans serving veterans. Everything that we do, we're a nonprofit, obviously, so everything we do goes back to the community. And that's what when I talk to somebody about joining, that's my point. I say, look, we do Christmas parties for the kids, we do for needy families.
Baseball.
We
Baseball,
we
yeah,
support
big part of
all
your
these things.
Legion
Your
ball.
role, yeah.
We support widows. One of the things that, not necessarily because it was me, but a few years ago, we have what's called an early bird dinner. If you join at a certain time of the year, we call it, you get early bird dinner. And I got permission from the board to invite the surviving spouses. And if you stop and think of it, the spouses have been the backbone of the Legion, of any organization. It's both parties. If one passes away, what happens to the other one? So I invited, how many? 20, 25 spouses to the thing. To this, that was 4 or 5 years ago. I still get thank you letters from them because they say, you didn't forget us. And this is what the point that the American Legion family is. We don't forget each other. And I try and make 3 phone calls a day, and I'm amiss on that. But if everybody tried to make 1 phone call a day and just say, how you doing? How's everything going? Nice to talk to you again. Drop in and see us sometime, just to let them know we're there.
Yeah.
If we can do anything for you, give us a call. Oh, and every time, and I'm sure he gets the same thing. Thank you for calling. You can almost feel them,
Yeah.
saying thank you for calling. And that's what we do. We serve, we continue to serve, and there's 2 paid positions in the whole organizations, and that's because they run the place. But the rest are volunteers.
Well, I know you gentlemen make a tremendous difference to the veterans and to the city as
The
a
whole
whole.
community, yep.
To the whole community, and I really am really grateful.
And the other nonprofit clubs do it, the Hibernians and there's
Yep.
so many organizations out there to do it. But what you asked about the Legion and about the veterans,
Yep.
and that's what we do. Veterans serving veterans.
Yeah,
And it's a comradeship.
yeah.
Well, with that, we've come to the end of the hour.
We've come to the end, gentlemen. I can't thank you enough.
Who's on
This has, been,
next?
this has been really good.
Tell them that we're running over.
Oh, well, we have to get out here or they get annoyed.
Just
Thank you for inviting us.
well,
Yeah,
thank
but-
you for coming on. on
Happy
short
Veterans
notice.
Day to both
I
of
didn't
you.
think we have enough for an hour. I could.
Oh, I
I got a
got
lot more programs to talk
I
to
got
you
I got
about.
a whole
absolutely.
subject I was about to broach with you guys, the Veterans for Peace, but we are run out of time. So
I love them.
you love them.
No, they're great people.
Glad to hear that. Yeah,
There is no.
veterans don't want war.
Yeah, we love talking about
had enough of
veterans,
war,
so
right?
Don't hesitate to call
That's
any
about
veterans
what we need to
organization.
say about that.
We love those guys.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Some
Thank
of
you,
them
Mike,
members of our
for
post.
scheduling this for us.
Well, thanks for watching, folks. Thank a veteran today, if there's still time, and we'll see you next week, I guess.